The hospital corridor was silent, except for the faint cry of a newborn echoing through the walls. Two men stood facing each other. One was angry, pacing back and forth, his fists clenched, his voice sharp and loud. The other stood still, calm, almost detached, his hands in his pockets, watching quietly. Both men were claiming the same baby. And neither of them knew that in a few weeks, a single envelope would expose a truth so shocking that it would destroy one man's pride, rewrite a woman's past, and reveal that the quiet husband standing there was not who anyone thought he was. This is how it all began. Clara met Ethan 2 years earlier. He wasn't flashy. He didn't brag. He wore simple clothes, drove an old car, and lived a quiet life. But he listened when she spoke, remembered the little things, and treated her with a level of patience she had never experienced before. Before Ethan there was Daniel. Daniel was exciting, loud, unpredictable. Their relationship burned hot and fast, then crashed just as hard. By the time Clara met Ethan, Daniel was already in her past, or so she believed. When Ethan proposed, Clara said yes without hesitation. The wedding was set. Invitations were sent. Everything felt perfect. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Daniel showed up. He said he just wanted to talk. He said he needed closure. Clara should have walked away. Instead, she listened. One conversation turned into old memories. Old memories turned into drinks. Drinks turned into a mistake that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The next morning, Clara left without a word, her heart pounding with guilt. She married Ethan 2 weeks later. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. It was in the past. It would never happen again. But guilt has a way of growing louder with time. 3 months into the marriage, Clara couldn't take it anymore. One evening, she sat across from Ethan at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. She told him everything. About Daniel. About the night. About the mistake. She cried. She begged. She prepared herself for anger, shouting, even divorce. Ethan sat quietly the entire time. When she finished, he took a deep breath and said something she would never forget. "What matters," he said calmly, "is what we choose from today onward." He forgave her. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he believed in second chances. Clara thought that was the end of it. She was wrong. Months later, Clara discovered she was pregnant. Ethan was overjoyed. He attended every appointment, read every parenting book, and talked to the baby before it was even born. When their son finally arrived, Ethan held the baby in his arms with tears in his eyes. "This is my boy," he whispered. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then Daniel appeared. He showed up at the hospital uninvited, standing in the doorway with a smirk on his face. He took one look at the baby and laughed. "That kid looks exactly like me," he said loudly. The room froze. Nurses exchanged glances. Clara's heart dropped into her stomach. Daniel stepped closer. "You really thought I wouldn't notice? I want a DNA test. That child is mine." Clara burst into tears. All eyes turned to Ethan. He looked at the baby, then at Daniel, and nodded slowly. "Fine," he said. Daniel smiled, until Ethan added one more sentence. "But only on one condition." Daniel crossed his arms, confident. "What condition?" Ethan's voice was calm, almost casual. "You pay for everything. The DNA test, the travel, the hotel, the legal fees, every cost involved." Daniel laughed out loud. "You don't look like you can afford half of that." Ethan smiled faintly. "That won't be a problem." Certain the test would prove him right, Daniel agreed immediately. He paid for top-tier labs, flew everyone to a private facility, hired lawyers to be present. He told friends he was about to expose a lie. What Daniel didn't know was that Ethan wasn't worried. Not even a little. Weeks passed. The tension was unbearable for Clara. Daniel bragged openly, telling anyone who would listen that he was about to reclaim his son. Ethan remained silent. He went to work, came home on time, held the baby every night, unbothered. Because Ethan already knew something no one else did. The day of the results arrived. All three sat in a sterile office, the envelope placed carefully on the desk between them. The lab technician cleared her throat. "The results are conclusive." Daniel leaned forward, confident. Clara squeezed her hands together, shaking. Ethan sat back, relaxed. The technician continued. "Daniel, you are not the biological father." Daniel blinked. "That's not possible," he said. The technician turned the page. "Ethan, you are also not the biological father." Silence filled the room. Clara gasped. Daniel's face went pale. "Then whose baby is this?" Clara cried. The technician hesitated before answering. "The child does not biologically belong to either of you." Daniel stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is fake," he shouted. "Redo the test." But Ethan stood up calmly. "No need," he said. Everyone turned toward him. "I already knew." Daniel stared at him. "What do you mean you knew?" Ethan took a breath. "During the pregnancy, I ran a prenatal genetic screening. I own a company that specializes in this." Daniel frowned. "You own a company?" Ethan nodded. "A global one." The room went silent. "I'm a billionaire," Ethan said quietly. "I just don't live like one." Daniel's knees nearly buckled. Ethan continued. "The test revealed a rare genetic marker that neither of us carries." Clara whispered, "Then how did this happen?" Ethan looked directly at Daniel. "Because the man you were comparing yourself to wasn't you." Daniel's eyes widened. "You have an identical twin," Ethan said. "Pat. He passed away years ago." Daniel collapsed back into his chair. The resemblance, the timing, the confusion, everything finally made sense. Daniel lost more than just an argument that day. The money he spent on the DNA test, lawyers, and travel? Ethan donated it to a foundation supporting abandoned children. Daniel's reputation crumbled. Clara expected Ethan to leave her. Instead, he picked up the baby and held him close. "Blood doesn't make a father," Ethan said softly. "Love does." They chose to raise the child together. Not as a mistake, but as a miracle. And Ethan returned to his quiet life, still powerful, still wealthy, still unseen. Because sometimes, the strongest man in the room is the one who never raises his voice. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. More powerful stories are coming, because the next truth might be even harder to believe.